Welcome to Incredible Idaho. I'm Mike Connaughton, and tonight we're going to explore a bit of Idaho on foot. For 1,200 miles, the Idaho State Centennial Trail weaves its way through the best of Idaho, from the Nevada state line to the Canadian border. The trail was officially designated in 1990 by the Lasting Legacy Committee as part of Idaho's Centennial celebration, but it was inspired by two friends who back in 1986 decided it was time to take a hike.
Well, we had gone across the state 5 years earlier from Hills Canyon over to Nez Perce Pass on the Montana line, Oregon to Montana. And we had so much fun on that trip, we thought we ought to do something similar. So what's the choice? Once you've been across, you got to go lengthwise, right?
Roger Williams and Sid Tate have taken some time this autumn afternoon to revisit the experience of a lifetime. They've come back to a portion of the trail that begins at Willow Creek Campground near Featherville, just south of the Sawtooth Mountains.
This particular stretch was one of our first real challenges out of the desert. We were hiking on flat ground, and we knew that we were faced with some heavy up and downhill going over the Sawtooth. So that was probably my main memory of this. Whether it was anticipation or fear, I don't know, but anyway, it was a very enjoyable section of the trail.
The 86-day trek originated here at Murphy Hot Springs on the Idaho-Nevada border. The trail rims the desert canyons of the Jarbidge and Bruneau rivers before crossing the Snake and gradually climbing into the rugged country of the Sawtooth Wilderness. Roger and Sid deliberately planned a trip that would take them through the heart of Idaho's designated wilderness areas.
Are you ready to go? Okay, here we go.
But the official Idaho State Centennial Trail also offers alternative routes that provide access for motorized use and mountain bikes.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Mountain biker Steve Stubner is a freelance journalist and the author of 5 outdoor guidebooks. This summer, he teamed up with the Idaho Trails Council to produce a guide to the Centennial Trail. The book features photographs by Roger Williams and a chapter describing his journey with Sid Tate in 1986.
Their trip is what created the vision for this trail. And I'm really glad they did that because I think it's a really neat idea.
There's a section devoted to the wide variety of Idaho wildlife that hikers may see, as well as some suggestions on gear and supplies. But most of all, it's a well-designed, user-friendly book that currently is the only comprehensive guide to the trail.
We hope to work towards a situation where the Centennial Trail is signed throughout the length of Idaho, and that the course of the trail is on all of the BLM and Forest Service maps. We're not there yet, and we're going to work towards that end. But in the meantime, this guidebook is your ticket to go find the trail. This is where we are. Here's our trailhead, and heading up into the Sawtooth Wilderness.
The trail heads north out of the Sawtooths and winds through the Frank Church River of No Return wilderness before crossing into the south end of the Selway Bitterroot. There it follows the wild and scenic Selway River for about 11 miles, then turns north again to cross the Locksaw River and the historical Lewis and Clark Trail on its way to the Montana-Idaho border.
The trail runs along the Bitterroot Divide for over 250 miles. And then from Clark Fork, you're going up into the Cabinet Mountains, across US 95, across the Selkirk Range over to Priest Lake, and then on the east shore of Priest and Upper Priest to the Canadian border.
It's an impressive route that combines Idaho's best, from spectacular deserts, mountains and rivers, to the magnificent big lakes of the North Country. The trail is a lasting legacy, a fitting tribute to a wondrous state.
Just the fact that Idaho is so big surprised me the most. You could stand up in the evening on a vista and see 7 or 8 ridges way in the distance and get the feeling that Idaho is so big and so wonderful a place to, and we had the opportunity to enjoy it. We hope this will inspire other people to get out and enjoy the state of Idaho that we love so much.
That's in my artist statement, is that I can't imagine being anything other than an artist. What would I be?
I think it's pretty much in mine, too.
Mm-hmm.
In our next story, we'll introduce you to a pair of artists from the Wood River Valley. One is a classical watercolor artist who creates amazingly colorful landscapes and wildlife paintings. And the other works in wood and considers himself a humorist first and an artist second. And yet somehow they've teamed up to become each other's greatest fan.
Yeah, we support each other.
We're in love.
Yeah.
Big time. The
Big,
biggest.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's part of supporting each other. You know, we know both of us are good. And it's the idea of being able to be supportive of the other one that helps. You know, be your biggest fan of your partner.
Meet artists Lynn Canary and Rob Hink. Alone, their individual artwork is outstanding. Put them together, and it's easy to see these newlyweds share a zest for life that's infectious.
Just a small chair, isn't it?
The giant chair with the cowboy boot legs is, of course, Rob's creation. Just one of the many wacky wood carvings that display his rather chaotic view of the world. Another is perched at the entrance to Lynn's business in downtown Ketchum, the Canary Art Gallery. It's rather large, rather pink, and rather unusual, and the perfect companion to the Baldy rest stop, a ski motif bench that sports, you guessed it, boots for legs. Inside the gallery, Lynn's distinctive paintings grace the walls, and one word comes to mind: color. Rich, brilliant, dynamic, vibrant color.
It's a sense of wonderment when you come in. It's a place of fun, it's a place of amusement, it's a place to feel good. So a lot of customers will come in there and they'll say that we wanted to see the gallery because it makes us feel good every time we walk in the door. It's not stuffy.
It's very colorful.
Like Lynn.
Thank you.
Lynn considers the atmosphere of the gallery an extension of her artistic talent. Captivating works from various other artists are scattered throughout several intimate rooms, and often you'll find a painting of Lynn's, like these geese in a dreamy winter landscape, displayed near one of Rob's whimsical carved animal stools. And oddly, the two complement each other. They're both uplifting, somehow suggesting a radiant spirit of lightness and joy.
She's very serious about her art, but it creates a mood of fun, and that's the color she uses, and the techniques, and the wonderful styling she does. But that's why I'm attracted to her art. I'm attracted to the lady, yes, but the artwork gets me right here too, because it comes from the same soul source that mine comes from. Completely different direction, but it comes from the same source.
There's no doubt that Rob's work is inspired by an outlandish sense of humor. There's just something about this guy that makes you start grinning the minute you meet him.
Are we ready? Here we go.
Rob describes himself in metaphors that don't make sense until you see his artwork. He says that maybe he was just meant to wear his boots on the wrong feet. But then what do you expect from a guy in a chili pepper shirt and sunglasses who drives a chainsaw?
I gotta decide which foot it is, if it's a right foot or a left foot, because I'll do the instep next.
Even his studio setting is a little surreal. Scattered around the room are various strange spectators watching their own creators create even more curious creatures.
Now, most cowboys are bow-legged, so I have to make it look like it's going to flop over. So that's what gives it the characteristic of one of my boots.
Rob says he uses the saw more like a sort of chisel, chipping away at the wood rather than making big cuts. A cowboy boot may be his signature piece, but footwear is his fetish.
Yeah, I have a foot fetish. Furniture has a foot fetish, just nobody knows it. Every furniture piece has a footwear. Every art piece has footwear. I just embellish them a little bit by putting boots on it.
Rob estimates that he's carved over 1,000 boots in one form or another, freewheeling it with his saw, a technique that his wife, Lynn, thinks is extraordinary.
Well, he's like a free spirit, and that he has no limits.
I think this old boot's been through a bit.
It's amazing to me that he can just create something without drawing it, like you saw him carving the wood. That to me is just amazing. When I watch him, just like my mouth wants to hang open, and because I'm more in my head about my art. Even though I paint loose, I feel like I'm more structured than he is, and so I really admire that he can be so free with it.
But Rob is equally impressed with his wife's artistic talents. If his signature element is the cowboy boot, hers is color.
Her sense of magical color, oh my, it just goes right through my whole being. I mean, just look at one of her paintings and it's magical, it's colorful. You want to jump into the painting. It's like you dreamt about the place, and that's a magical kingdom, and you can be part of the fairyland that's there. And so that's what I love about her.
This is my favorite brush right here. It like does miracles. I don't know how it learned how, but it does.
Lynns Studio is the front room of their home. She says for her, it's not about surroundings, because her inspiration comes from within.
And I'm painting about who I am and what I'm seeing and how I'm feeling about it. And I think that's what makes my work so emotionally appealing, that it's so, what?
From the soul? From the
Yeah, it's
heart?
from my soul. It's from my insides. It's, I guess I feel like my paintings are really positive, energy, happy, joyful, makes people feel good, and that's because that's what I'm feeling inside about my life and what I've been doing and what I've been seeing.
A watercolor, of course, uses water. So a large painting like this must be done in sections to keep the paper from drying out.
This is kind of the underlay of colors. It's really soft, and then later I'll go back in and do a little more detail.
The details come with the flowers. Using her fingers and a stiff brush, Lynn splatters color in an abstract manner, much the way wildflowers would grow naturally in a mountain meadow.
This all has to be done at the right time while the water's just the right, so it won't spread too much or not enough, so it looks not too contrived.
Lynn's a big believer that there are no rules when it comes to art. Although she was a trained commercial artist, Lynn essentially learned to paint on her own after moving to Idaho in the late 60s. She began by capturing in watercolor the wildlife she saw when hiking and canoeing around the Wood River Valley. Now she does everything from sea creatures to landscapes.
This is my favorite part, is when I get to do these big wet washes. They're really fast and fun and hard. Even though they look like it's easy, it's hard to get what you're trying to create because the water does whatever it wants. But that's part of the magic of it, because you never know what's going to happen.
But you do know, no matter the subject, the resulting work will be vibrant with Lynn's signature element, color.
Color, and that I paint the emotions of the piece rather than a representation of what it really is. I paint how I feel about it. It's like a dream. How your vacation is always better 6 months later in your dreams than it was in reality. That's how I feel my paintings are, and people relate to them because they have a dream-like quality to them.
So, dreamy watercolor meets funky furniture at, of all things, a swing dance. And somehow the two artists merge into a marriage. Their artistic styles may be different at first glance, but the spirit is the same. A lightness, a buoyant sense that life should be lived humorously and colorfully. In one word,
Fun.
Yeah, fun, definitely. Playful.
Joyful. Magical.
There's more than one
There's
word.
more than one word. Did I say that?
You just did.
up next, bull trout bypass Kirby Dam.
But the big key is whether or not they're going to use a ladder. We can provide the ladder, but you can't make the fish swim up the ladder.
In 1906, a dam was built below the boomtown of Atlanta, Idaho, to supply power to miners. At the time, little thought was given to a migratory fish called the bull trout. Consequently, it was cut off from its traditional spawning grounds upstream of Kirby Dam for over 90 years. But that may be about to change. The old wooden dam gave way dramatically.
Did you see it fail?
Yes,
I couldn't believe it.
I couldn't either.
I looked at it.
Polluting the middle fork of the Boise River with sediment and leaving the remaining residents of the old mining town in the dark.
The new dam and new bridge look stunning, the product of a frantic winter's worth of work.
But a new dam was built on the site in 1992.
The new dam locks down tons of toxic sediments and keeps them from washing downstream.
And now finally a fish passage is being constructed to open the old spawning habitat to bull trout once again, for the first time in almost a century.
But the big key is whether or not they're going to use a ladder. We can provide the ladder, but you can't make the fish swim up the ladder. So we're just trying to do everything we can, provide a ladder and bring some adults up here. But it's still up to the fish.
This will be our net for the lower boundary.
Researcher Brian Flatter and a crew of fish and game biologists are attempting to capture adult bull trout on the middle fork of the Boise River below Kirby Dam.
We go out in the water, snorkelers, and we try to spot the fish. They're pretty big. They're 20, 25 inches or so. And if we can spot them, we can more or less guide the guys with the probes that are electrofishing to the fish or guide the fish into our block net.
Okay, we're on. The electricity in the water stuns the fish. And as long as the scientists are in dry suits, preventing water from directly contacting their skin, the men are protected from the shock.
Hey, John, shut it off.
A big bull trout has been spotted, but it deftly avoids being caught in the electric current. So it's time for Plan B, physically herding the fish into the block net.
The water's pretty clear, and you can't see them above water, but once you put a mask on, you get down in it, you can see them from probably 20, 25 feet away, something like that. And they're pretty easy to herd, too. They don't like to swim upstream.
Right over here.
I see him.
Here? He's over here.
There he is, right there.
There he is. Where's he at?
Right there.
I'm running over there, and he's running away as soon as I run over.
Okay, just turned. I don't know where the hell he went. There he is, right there. Coming at the net. He's at the net. He's in the net.
Got him. Good.
The idea is to move the captured fish above the dam before the fall spawning season. In this manner, biologists hope to jumpstart a new population of migrating bull trout in their old traditional territories.
Nice fish. Pretty. There he is.
But first, since this is a fairly large fish, a radio transmitter is surgically implanted into its abdomen. Then, for 2 years, researchers will be able to track its movements up and down the river system.
That's what it sounds like when it's transmitting.
Bull trout are a pretty good indicator of what's going on in general in the whole system. They're real unique fish. They have a pretty unique life history. They need real clean areas, cold water, clean cold water. So if those fish are going away, it's a pretty good indicator there's something going on in the system.
The fish is driven above Kirby Dam to the Yuba River to be released. It's a strong fish and appears to be recovering well from its recent surgery.
Run down the creek.
It's a good spot up here. There haven't been any up here in, well, almost 90 years, so.
Oh, he bit me.
Pretty neat. Get a couple more up here so it's not too lonely. And right now we're tracking about 65, 70 fish, something like that, so we get a lot of useful information.
On tonight's Creature Feature, we'll take a closer look at the bull trout, an Idaho native who's in trouble. The bull trout was listed as a threatened species under the Federal Endangered Species Act in the summer of 1998. For years, they were considered a nuisance fish, but times change.
Yeah, he's right in front of us somewhere. No problem yet. He's got to be over there in the brush somewhere.
And now research studies are being conducted throughout the state by Fish and Game in partnership with the Bureau of Reclamation, the Forest Service, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to learn how best to restore Idaho's bull trout populations.
We're trying to understand bull trout habitat and the movement patterns of the fish, and they are difficult to study, and we need to know more about bull trout habitat, what they use to spawn, and what's important to this fish.
One of the things that we've seen the fish appear to key on is overhead cover, whether it's boulders or submerged logs or overhanging vegetation. Cover seems to be very important.
They can grow big, and anglers and people who don't fish can look at a 30-inch bull trout in one of these small streams in the future, and that seems really important.